So hi everybody.
Hello everyone.
We're Josh and Charlotte. We're a couple. We're married.
Yes, we are.
I say that because it's pretty recent. So, yeah. So I'm Charlotte Durif. I am French, and I now live in Salt Lake City because I follow Josh, who is working here. I'm just turned 30, and I've been climbing as long as I can remember. But what we're talking about today is bolting. So I guess I've been bolting for 4 years. And we've been doing a lot of it, and you'll learn all about it in this clinic.
Yeah. My name's Josh Larson. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. Sadly, my Boston accent is gone, but I still hold true to it when I can. No R's allowed when you're in Boston. You can't pronounce an R. I've been climbing for like, I don't know, 15, 18 years, somewhere in there. I can't really remember. And been just like, yeah, pretty much for the past, I think 10 years, just fully addicted to climbing and coaching climbing and route setting, and also developing. In the past 10 years, I've been like starting to travel a bit more to areas to like look for new things or bolt new lines or hang out with new people or in a different town or different country than I'm used to. So that part of like climbing is cool to me. Like the development aspect of it. It's a bit adventurous, you know, no guidebooks and no not a lot of information, so you're kind of out on your own. So it's just a whole nother like level or category of climbing that this amazing sport allows us to get is yeah, just all sorts of different things. So we'll take you through a little bit of like some of our travels in the past couple of years. Charlotte and I, was it 2018? 17. 2017, we decided to go on this world tour. We planned it out for almost a year of like all these kind of not so known destinations around the world. And we called it a world less traveled. So we were going to places like Serbia or Madagascar or Peru and China and all these like little, or not little, but big countries with like either little climbing communities or little climbing development already happened. So we, my dog's being crazy right now. So we based our trip around that, and from that we did a lot of networking with locals and outreaching and developing. So I don't know if you have anything to add there.
Don't have anything to add. Yeah, disclaimer about the clinic. It's not a clinic to teach you how to bolt, because you shouldn't do that through a virtual clinic. It's more about sharing our experience and some experience and like adventure and things we encountered, and more about the travel side of things and what's over the years we learned is important for us to do when we're about to bolt something or develop an area or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we have a presentation that we're sharing with you. So, that's great.
Can you see that, Sam? Is that good?
Yep, you can see it.
All right.
It's a great photo.
Yeah. That was actually our, that was our most recent bolting trip, which was in Peru. It was a year ago. We were supposed to be there again right now, but as we all know, this is not possible. But yeah, that was a cool trip a year ago that actually we're going to talk about in this presentation.
Yeah, so we kind of like, we picked a few of our like some of our most favorite zones we've visited, mostly for climbing and developing. And I mean, the reasons why we picked some of these is just the beauty of some of the features or the stories that we have bolting or the stories we have with the local communities, whether they're the climbers or the landowners. So one that's somewhat close to home is Puerto Rico. It was a place I never really thought there was climbing of until one of the locals was up in Boston and kind of tapped me on the shoulder at a competition and said, "Hey, if you ever want to come to Puerto Rico, we have a lot of rocks to climb and a lot of cool beaches and good food, and we would love to have you down and like start looking for rocks and climbing with us." And they had already had quite a bit developed. So I went down there and I was really like just impressed with the rock quality and the locations of the rocks. As you can see in the photo on the right, there's basically the three main local guys, Bryant and Gilo and Eduardo. And, we would pretty much like these guys would just, well, basically the first trip down there, this is a really fun story. The first trip down there, they picked me up in this old van and we left the airport, my brother and I, and one of the wheels fell off the van on the highway. And we just like came to a screeching halt, and there was this like big hour-long epic or multiple hour-long epic. And it was just funny. Their personalities were just like, yeah, welcome to Puerto Rico, guys. Let's get climbing. And we spent the next like week. These guys were just touring us around to the zones of amazing granite boulders and like deep water soloing. Some of the boulders, as you can see, are like in the jungle on the left where Charlotte's climbing this like kind of off-width crack compression thing. And just being in the jungle with like, the locals who like grew up in the jungle, learning all about like plants that like make you itch and like, plants that you can eat, and then all sorts of just like weird things that you wouldn't normally see in like Utah or Boston. Iguanas running around instead of squirrels, just like a crazy fun atmosphere. And then there was a lot of these, like the picture on the right here is a lot of the climbing just like right in people's backyard. You can see like there's a house just right there. So we would go up with the locals and talk to the landowners. And we've never talked to a single landowner in Puerto Rico that didn't say like, A, what is rock climbing? And B, of course you can do it on my land. And they were just so kind and so welcoming. Some even gave us dinner because they knew we were out there so late. So, you might hear us say it a lot, but like a lot of our travels and trips were just like, they're so fun to meet the local communities that are the non-climbers, and to really see how they live and to see how they function and how kind they are. That was a really fun thing. So most of the trips have been bouldering, but then Charlotte and I, we found this, well, we didn't find this tower. The locals found this tower, which doesn't seem very hard to find because it kind of just sticks out of the jungle. But I'll let Charlotte take it over from here as far as like how this became our goal.
Yeah, so before I even made it to Puerto Rico, Josh was there in one of his trips because he went there like every year for a while. And he texted me, he's like, oh, the locals just showed me that tower that they like us to come and see and start bolting because they don't really know how to tackle it. I was like, yeah, sure, sounds good, that's good. Even without seeing pictures of it, it sounded like a good excuse to go down to Puerto Rico. Just because we didn't mention it, but I'm more of a sport climber than a boulder. So boulders only were not too attracting for me. And we got there and we saw this tower sticking out of the jungle. To give you a scale, it's pretty 60 feet tall.
Yeah.
60, 70 maybe on the tallest part. And they showed it to us and they're like, yeah, we do something with it. So again, the first thing we wanted to make sure is that it was okay for with the landowner that we bolt it. And again, we had to explain what climbing was, and they're just so welcoming and liked the idea of it and didn't mind it at all. They actually told us some cool story about this tower because what we can see here is that the ocean is not too far from it. So it used to be apparently a natural lighthouse, if you may call it like this, for boats back in the days, just to find their bearings. So that was pretty cool. Another story they told us is you can see how it's like kind of a half egg feature. Well, apparently the other half of the egg fell and is now laying down in the jungle. And we looked for it and we actually found some boulders on it. So it was a pretty cool second thing to do. So we pretty much went 2 years. You can live it. We went 2 years, well, on this tower, and yeah, the cool thing was the island is pretty small and the local climbers were always happy and available to come and bolt as well, and we could work together. So here's a little clip which Sam gives us a thumb up if it works and if you hear the sound, but it's about our second trip there.
I should probably buy this hat.
Gilo, Brian, and us teamed up to go down south to Piedra Blanca to finish cleaning it, bolt fit more, and make it more accessible for more people.
Digging the stairs.
There are a few lines on the tower that are really obvious to be climbed and bolted, and the year previous we had 3 lines bolted on the tower. That thing has been sleeping for 3 months since we left Serbia, so I think now it's time to wake up. And now as a team we made 8 routes all around the tower, which is really nice because now it looks like it's complete. So we chose this little extract from a video we made pretty much during our world tour. We did a video of each destination. So that was a little extract from the Puerto Rico video. And what we wanted to show there is not only developing and bolting is putting bolts in the wall, it's also making the whole experience enjoyable for everybody and easily accessible and sustainable in a way that we just don't go leave and then it's not at like the approach sucks or whatever. So in this situation, that was a pretty steep hill and we did some switchbacks and try to make it look good because this tower is pretty awesome. As you can see in the picture on the right, there are some parts where it's not steep at all. It's technical because it's granite and it's pretty neat actually. It's like smooth, grainy granite with like 3D features sticking out of it. So it makes it very enjoyable climbing for any level. From, I think on the right we have a route which might be a 510, the easiest route. And then on the left, you can see on the right, that's a project that's pretty 514 something. So a bit of everything. It was another cool and very easy experience in some ways, just because it was right next to the roads, easy access. The approach to the tower was super nice once we made some nice steps and stuff. Did I forget something?
I don't think so. So, I mean, the cool thing about this tower was it was a tower, so there's no access naturally to the top other than climbing to the top. So our first mission was like just trying to get to the top. So Charlotte just geared up and like basically climbed her way to the top. And that was like our first experience of like a ground up ascent, you know, climbing, finding a spot, putting a Fifi hook and putting in a bolt and continuing to climb. So it was, you know, there's always different experiences when you approach different cliffs. You know, some cliffs are easier from the top down. Some cliffs are only accessible from the ground up. And we ran into all sorts of different scenarios. I mean, I kind of, when I was like first climbing or even like years into climbing, I just thought like bolting was always the same, or it was always just like top down or you know, rappelling and bolting, but there's so many variables to it all that makes it interesting. You know, you're problem solving even before you find the root or the boulder problem. So this was a fun problem solve for sure.
Yeah.
Getting to the top.
And for the anecdote, that was our first bolting trip together.
Yeah.
I had just learned bolting. So for this story, I've been competing my whole life and I've been climbing outdoors my whole life. And when I stopped competing in 2016, like a couple of weeks after, I went on a bolting trip with the French Alpine club, and I fell in love instantly, which is weird because it's kind of a hard job. It's like very physical, and you spend your day hanging on your harness pretty much. But I loved it, and that's kind of around when Josh and the locals in Puerto Rico told us about these towers. So we're like, this is the perfect place to me share my knowledge about bolting to Josh and bolt something cool. And you got the passion too right away.
Oh yeah, right away. Yeah. I mean, as we go through these areas too, if anyone has like questions about these specific zones and like, I mean, Puerto Rico's on the, I believe you can travel there right now, but anyway, it's a great winter destination because it's the coolest down in Puerto Rico in like December, January. So little plug there for Puerto Rico.
Very different.
Yeah, very, very different location and feel is Serbia in the Balkans. I was approached a couple years, maybe like 4 years ago, by Real Rock and the U.S. Embassy that put on a Real Rock tour in Serbia to promote climbing, to get like just awareness that climbing exists and that they have caves like this in Serbia that I did not know about until we saw. So it's a really cool program. It was, you know, put on by the local coalition in Serbia and then U.S. Embassy and then Real Rock Film Tour. And I went out there and I did some coaching and some climbing. And while I was out there, I, you know, kind of reported back to the friends at home and to Charlotte. I was like, there is a lot of really good rock here. And a lot of it is not developed. So when Charlotte and I went on our tour, we put Serbia on the map.
Yeah.
And, you know, connected with locals again, like the same people that I had already hung out with and that hosted me there. They were like, yes, come here for a month and like, let's develop cliffs together. And I think for us, it's really cool. We get to see like how other like locals and communities approach, you know, land and access, and also like bolting style. And then they also get to see like how I approach it and how Charlotte approaches it, because we all kind of have our own style. So it's a cool way to just like share, kind of like what we're doing with you guys right now, is we're just like sharing our experiences. So we'll go through Serbia a little bit here. I believe we have a video.
Yeah, so just to give a little background on this little clip we did again. So pretty much when we got to Serbia together, we drove down to a place called Niš. It's like in the southern central part of the country. And so we went climbing in an area which is already established. It's like actually very old somehow. Then for a day, we're like, all right, guys, show us where you think there could be development, what you guys would be interested in. So we drove through this valley, which is parallel to the one already developed. And that's the story of it coming in the video. Maybe?
Huh. Oh, there it was.
Around the corner outside of a tunnel, I looked on my right and I saw that huge cave. And just from the road, that cave looked really impressive because the bottom part looked deep and steep. We both agreed that we had to check it out.
So the next day, Igor, Charlotte, and I made it the mission to get to the cave. And we were driving around some roads and we got a bit lost, so we asked the local wood splitter for some directions, and he was kind enough to sit on a log and draw us a map. So we hiked some of the trails that he drew, and we realized that maybe coming in from the top wasn't the best option.
And so we decided to attack it from the bottom.
We just gotta forge the river. We just got to do it.
Oh my god! Ooh, yeah. We didn't even have to pull the short straw. Josh went for it. And when he got to the other side, he settled the static lines.
Took us a bit of time to figure out the right way to tighten it.
Igor went first, and the static line was not really tight enough, so midway through he ended up with his butt in the water.
And we made our way to the cave.
Get a wee bit closer. You can start to see it.
Almost there.
Bushwhacking our way, machete with trekking poles.
After about 30-minute uphill with Josh macheting with a hiking pole, we finally made it to the cave. And it was a big wow. It was so much bigger than we expected.
Darker than we thought, had levels to it.
And so much taller and deeper and a lot of potential to it. Where the hell are we?
We're at the hardware store niche getting hardware for our Tyrolean. And we bought a Tyrolean kit. Basically, it's a boring zipline kit.
Tube to protect the tree.
But kind of cool because it goes over a big river.
Ah!
Nice!
Made it dry!
Wow, that's cool that it worked. Yeah, we just basically turned a hill that was like, I don't know, felt like 45 degrees into a bunch of little switchbacks.
Cool.
Yeah, so we really like this. We never thought when we started developing and when we left for this big trip that would have to do that.
Yeah, that we would have to build a Tyrolean sort of zipline bridge across a raging river. So yeah, we ended up like just kind of hitting hardware stores and finding all the gear, and we confirmed with locals that this was, you know, approved and okay. And I think they take it down seasonally and put it back up. But it's like it was a cool way to gain access to this cliff that the locals, yes, they had seen it before. It's really obvious to see the cliff when you're driving down the highway, but the access was like, well, it's across the river, it's too hard to get there, and we just can't find a way. And we're like, oh, well, let's swim across the river and build a Tyrolean. And so this was a really fun experience to like start diving in. We spent like 4 weeks with the local climbers, and we just started like bolting in this insane roof. It was actually the steepest bolting either of us had ever done before.
Yeah, and still so far.
And still so far, yeah. It was just like, again, so, you know, we were talking about like top down bolting before and then ground up ascent. This was, you know, there was no option to come in from the top. I mean, there was, but it was way more work and like multiple redirected lines. Whereas like if you bolt from the ground up in this scenario, because it's so steep, it's actually a lot easier. So this again was kind of our first like ground up bolting experience. So we had to like, you know, come up with our system of like the best way to space the bolts and to ascend the wall. And Charlotte had a nice scare. She was like hanging on some cams about to put a bolt in, and this flake blew off the wall, and she flew off the wall with the bolt swinging in the air. And you know, just like, wow, all right, like scary, hard to know. Like cam just kind of popped a loose rock off, but safety glasses and helmet, and you know, that's like where we're like, okay, we really need to be safe because anything can really happen out here. And so yeah, I mean, Charlotte, talk about some of the bolting because the lines were super cool.
Yeah, so rock, very different from the one you just saw in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
This is limestone. It's mostly good, but there's, as you can guess, I suppose, like some chunks, some loose rocks and things. So that's also a part of bolting, which is not only just like cleaning the surface, but also making the route safe by sometimes you have to break a little chunk of rocks so it doesn't break when a climber is climbing it and falls on the layer or something. So it's something we also learn on the way, is like where to put the limit of cleaning to make a route safe.
Yeah.
And that involves a little screwdriver to pop up a thing. Sometimes it's a crowbar because it's a bigger piece of rock, but it's also part of a process, which I think is the same for bouldering too. You know, you don't get, you do sometimes, but it's really rare to get to a piece of rock which is just pure and safe and ready to be climbed. You have to do a little bit to it without creating things that don't exist or changing it, but just to make it safe. Yeah, so that was steep, as you can tell, like on the left pictures, like straight roof. So it was quite a workout few weeks. But it was fun that in this scenario there, because we're not bolting above each other because it was so steep, we're able to both work at the same time in the same route, with leaving some distance, like couple bolts between each other. But that's also a fun aspect, to not just keep a route for ourselves, but to do it together.
Yeah.
And share that experience. So that's what we did on the picture on the right. Oh yeah, Serbia. So as we mentioned earlier, it's very, very awesome to reach out to the locals and get to meet them and get to just know their lifestyle, because everybody is so different, like from some part of the world to others. It's different world and lives, and so those people, actually Josh, you didn't talk about them because you hang out more with them.
Well, these are the local, just the local supporters of climbing. They have a little hostel set up for climbers. Some of the areas that we've developed in Serbia, they own the land. But also they're the nicest people. They would have these insane, like, I don't know, grill barbecue. They're just like loads and loads of meat. It was
so
insane.
Much meat. If you're a vegetarian,
yeah, if you're a vegetarian, sorry about the left photo, but this was just like their culture. This was just what they did. And this is actually the family. It's the husband and wife and their brother. And yeah, every night we would just, come back from climbing and share stories, and they would share crazy stories about just their life and how they got to where they are. And that was just as good as climbing as anything. So again, Serbia, taught us a lot about bolting. It was a really good learning experience for us. And at the end of the day, we were always climbing with people we had never met, and we were just like getting to know the Serbian style, and they're really friendly, fun people. And their climbing culture is growing slowly. Actually, I think quickly. In the past couple of years, it's been growing quite quickly. There's a World Cup athlete, Stasha Gayo, and she's like definitely on the top of the World Cup game. And so she's been like kind of showing the world that like Serbia is on the map in competition climbing, just as well as they have these massive caves. So we will continue our tour through one of Charlotte, a place that we might move to one day. It's just one of our favorite places, and the rock is endless. And I'll let Charlotte take it from here. But we visited Peru. Just a quick thing, we were only going to stay in Peru, in one part of Peru, for about 10 days. And after our first day of being there, we extended our trip to 5 weeks. So we were like, okay, we're here, and 5 weeks isn't enough, but this is all we can do. So let's go from 10 days to 5 weeks and explore. Yeah.
Oh man, I love this picture. We actually have this picture in our office, like 2 rooms away. Yeah, Peru is amazing. So in our world tour, we wanted to go to Peru anyway, because I don't know, it sounded cool. And we reached out to locals and people that may know about South America. And we ended up in contact with a now friend named Coco. And Coco told us, yeah, there is that area called Pitumarca where we need some help for development because there is so much. And he told us, yeah, right now there's like 80 routes. It's probably like 10% of the potential. And we got there and we climbed a day, and then for 2 days, we just hiked up and down in the valley, like around the cliffs, like try to see as much as possible. And our first thought was, well, probably only 1% that's been developed so far. Yeah. There's so much rock. Like the picture here is just like a little sample of the whole area. So we made a list of like, I don't know, 20 things we wanted to develop, and we actually picked 2 or 3, and we checked with Coco that it's things that make sense. And we went for it. And the cool part there is we didn't want, and there, I said there, but also anywhere else we've been going to, we're aiming more at cliffs than just like single hard route to come and bolt and sand and leave that some people do. But we wanted really to give to the community, like really be a help. And so we picked those 2 cliffs that we bolted, and we bolted 20 routes or so during our stay. So we had everything from easy, like any first climber can try, to like projects, and it was amazing. I don't even have the word to describe like the good time we had there. It's like the ideal bolting situation. And just in this zone, which is big, but it's still a bubble, there was everything again from you could just walk around the cliff and wrap down and bolt top down. Sometimes you had to go ground up. Sometimes it was slabby. Sometimes it was like big overhanging prow. It was amazing, and we want to go back every year for the rest of our life. And actually, so we went back a year later because you're gonna see it in the video. I was gonna explain it, but the video says it all. Back in 2018, we were in Pitumarca developing in the Chaco-Ayaska Valley. And one day with Coco, the local, we decided to drive around to go look at another cliff that we could see from far behind. And we never found the road to go to it, but we ended up going in that other valley, and we faced that giant wall that just has to be bolted. Looked like super good limestone. Since then, we really wanted to just come back for it and bolt it and take that challenge, because it really looked like a challenge. So over the course of maybe a bit more than a year, we were texting back and forth with Coco. Big goal in that kind of project here is to get the authorization from the communities. Super excited, we got the thumbs up to develop the Achorro Valley. Yeah, so something that's really, even more special in Peru, because there's not a climbing culture there, and you're in like really remote villages and areas where people sometimes live without electricity, and they walk 3 hours a day to go sell their potatoes they're growing, or walk their alpacas around. So it's like a good example of a very different world. And when Coco and Diana first saw the potential of climbing in the area, they really got closer to the communities, because they're called local communities. And it took them maybe a year to make them understand what climbing is, how it will not damage their land and the rock, as long as it's done in a right way, which it's their mindset out there in Peru. And so it was awesome the first year because they already got their authorization, but the second year, because it's a different valley, it's different communities, different landowners, so they had to go through the old process again. And those three guys you can see in the middle here are the president of the communities, and they were really, as soon as they understood what climbing was and climbing meant and what it could bring them, they were super excited to help us and like build bathroom if we needed to, and like, yeah, it was nice. Back to the big wall. So that was last year, and the first thing we were debating for a bit was how to tackle it, and that's what we're going to show in that second clip.
We hiked to the top with my brother. It was a cool ridge traverse to get to the very point of the tower.
Came from the top because it was pretty easy to reach, and the goal was just to wrap down to the bottom to get a sense of how the wall is or where the roots could be. So for this project, we're using some 10mm bolts, but for the anchors, we're getting some 12mm with some nice rings on it. Josh is gonna go for the big plunge. Be safe, don't let the rope go.
Great beta.
Yeah. Josh is giggling because of my obvious advice, but something I've grown up with because my dad used to be a climber, alpinist, mountaineering. I've always been educated with the safety first type of thing. And I think with bolting, there are a lot of stake in place and a lot of things that could go wrong. So safety is something very important to us. We always double check each other, have two anchors as much as we can. We're being very careful with the rope against the rock. Yeah, that's yeah, you never know. That's something important for us. So yeah, do you want to talk about Contorsiana?
Do we have another video on it?
We don't have another
no.
video.
I mean, yeah, it was last year. Felt like a really long time ago, and yeah, it was our first. Like we knew what we kind of knew what we were getting ourselves into. This was a different style of bolting again. This was multi-pitch. As you can see, this cliff is definitely not a single pitch cliff. So we had to devise a plan on the best, most efficient way. So to bolt it, so we decided to come in from the top down and find the right line and not spend a lot of time like getting lost on the wall or putting in bolts that are unnecessary to put in. We were able to like, be precise with the lines and the bolt placements and not, go crazy with trying to, put in too many bolts from the ground up or trying to find different lines and getting lost and retreating, and which happens in ground up bolting first ascent. So we had a blast finding the line. It's 800-foot cliff, right? 246.
230 meters.
Yeah.
So yeah, 800.
Yeah, like 700 feet, actually, whatever. Meters, feet, whatever. It's 230 meters. And the big point of this was, yeah, it was our first multi-pitch. It was going to be hard after we first, found the lines, and it was also at 15,000 feet elevation. So, taller than a lot of the mountains around here. Is just like, where our base camp started at 15,000 feet, and it was just like,
it was hard.
It was hard. It was hard on the lungs, hard on the body, hard on the brain, just because of it's hard to to work that much at that altitude and then to exert so much energy. But you know, we're not complaining. We loved it. We asked for it and we kept doing it. And we learned so much about bolting here and so much more about Peru.
Yeah.
And
we experienced the mountain. Other part of the mountain in high altitude is also getting ready for any weather. So in the previous pictures, as you can tell, we're working with layers and puffers, which tells you how cold it was, because if you do 2 moves with puffies, you start sweating.
yeah.
But it did not stop us at all. We had some days where there would be like a little snowstorm coming by, and it was not the actual thunderstorm season yet, so we were not too worried about it, but that's something that comes later. But luckily we were still away from it. And other day it was t-shirt weather, so it was fun to adapt ourselves all the time. We're gonna finish still in the mountains, but around here, the Tetons, which is another place very special for you, Josh.
Yeah, the Tetons, you know, finally a place close to home in the States. When I was in Boston, the Tetons felt really far away, but now, you know, being here in Utah, the Tetons are only 4 hours away, which is great, 4.5. But yeah, like as far as climbing and bouldering in the Tetons, I didn't know anything really existed until I was out there hiking the Grand with my uncle and my brother. And we happened to walk past a lot of boulders up in the Garnett Canyon, and just like seeing the quality of the rock and the boulders, just kind of like passing by hiking, I was like, oh, there's got to be some climbing up here. And after talking to some rangers and some XM guides, they're like, yeah, there's a little bit of bouldering up here, but it's mostly in the valley, and people mostly just come up here to climb mountains and trad lines, which is amazing. But as a boulder at heart, I was like, I think we can do some bouldering up here. So basically since then, I've been going back every summer for Alpine bouldering season. And having discovered about like 4 different canyons that cut through the mountain range, it was time to like start, you know, figuring out the logistics and access. And basically I went straight to the rangers after we developed a little bit and said, hey, you know, like here's some pictures of the climbing and the areas, you know, can we get your blessing to like basically go out here and just like develop boulders? And in fact, they not only gave us thumbs up, but they said like, please give us a topo so we can go climb them too. So we ended up having already a good relationship with the rangers up in the Teton National Park. And yeah, I mean, every summer we go out there with friends, and we hike up, you know, it's either an hour to hour and a half of hiking to some of the good canyons. And we've spent, you know, weeks and just finding amazing rocks. I'll switch the slide now. You don't have to look at me anymore. The picture on the left is basically in Garnett Canyon. That's the middle Teton in the back. So this is kind of like the gateway to the Grand in the middle. And turns out there's a ton of really nice with a G granite and tons of lines. Some are remote, wrapped along a river. Some are right along the trail, like on the right here. This one is just directly on the trail, which is great because this is a pretty active trail in Death Canyon, and people come by and go, hey, what are you guys doing? And, you know, we explain to them that we're climbing, and here's some video links or some topo links, and people get psyched on it. And matter of fact, today I'll be driving back up there to spend one last time this season before the snow falls and people are skiing over the boulders. To climb and just to hang out with some friends, and that's about it. So I think the developing has taken us to places we never really, I don't think we would have gone if we were, you know, if we just grabbed a guidebook and went to climbing areas. Not to say that those areas aren't amazing already, but it's just like different because you can grab a guidebook and you can go anywhere that guidebook takes you. And then you can also do the contrary, and you can just like call up, email a local climber in Serbia and be like, hey, can we come climb with you guys and like figure some stuff out? And
yeah, it's been pretty addictive, and we love that new aspect of the climbing world we fell into. And wherever we go climbing, only somewhere, it gives us a lot more appreciation for the work that's been done, the bolting and the bottom of the cliffs or the boulders. And yeah, it's been a great experience, although it's hard work, and we're hardly planning any trips without developing in mind now. So yeah,
that's pretty much
awesome.
Pretty much it. I don't know, Sam, if you had anything else we wanted to hit there, but
Anybody has questions?
yeah, we're open to questions, and looks like we have about 9 minutes. So yeah, I don't know how questions work in this format, in this virtual world, but
yeah. If anyone has questions, feel free to like chime in, or you can write in the chat box. But that was amazing. That was super cool. I remember watching your guys' YouTube videos and like, you know, those guys are so cool. Look at them, like traveling, doing it.
Yeah, cool.
So highest level of success in my mind. Very, very cool what you guys are doing for the community. I do have questions for you guys.
Okay.
Do you have any routes that you haven't sent or climbed, but you have bolted? Or have you climbed everything that you've bolted?
No. We have many projects. I think everywhere. I'm going through all the places we developed in Greece, in Serbia, Puerto Rico, in Peru. We have projects in Peru still. Yeah, we do have projects still.
Yeah, it's sometimes like there's either not enough time or not enough energy.
Yeah.
Or you're just not strong enough. But it's just like, you know, you spend so much time bolting and hanging on a rope, and then you try to send it, and it's, you know, you're just like, oh, all right, next time. But, or somebody else. I mean, we have no, you know, like, this is our route. We're not going to tell anyone. We're going to red tag it. You know, it's just like, if you're in Peru and if you're in Greece and you see some bolts, I mean, tell us, let us know what it's like. You know, were we really tired, or is it really hard?
Yeah.
So yeah, like that would be cool. Looks like we have a question from Sarah.
What's the name of the community in Peru you developed? So the village was Pitumarca, and the valley, which I believe is also the name of the community there, is a Chaco Huayasca. And it's all 2.5 hours drive south of Cusco. So that answers the second question.
Yeah, you can basically, if you're looking into traveling, you basically fly into Cusco, and you can rent a car there, and 2 hours you're in Pitumarca climbing.
Very cool. This is kind of more of I guess a philosophical question, but can you guys talk on the responsibility of climbers in developing routes? Like, do you think it's important for routes to be developed, or I guess kind of like, what are your viewpoints on that?
I don't think it's I don't think it's necessary that we need to have more and more routes. It's, you know, I don't think it's about like numbers of routes, but I do think that, I think Charlotte and I have talked about this a lot, that like going to new areas and developing new areas with locals and finding the not popular areas will start to dilute the popular areas where there's very heavy traffic, and you're seeing that happen to the land, and you're seeing what happens when there's 1,000 climbers in the course of, you know, a week in walking through a cliff area. So, you know, I think that like, yeah, we certainly probably don't need more routes at those cliffs, but we need other cliffs and other bouldering areas to like start pulling population to different areas, because there's 5-star lines everywhere, and there's 5-star lines that nobody knows exist.
Yeah.
And I think once those start to gain traction, and hopefully they do from wherever they are in the world, we can start seeing like less impact on our climbing areas. But I think that was like our big angle on the World Less Traveled tour was like, yeah, we could spend like 2 years traveling to all these super popular places, Sayus, Font, Rocklands. We did go to Rocklands, but like we could just try to like do all of these like mega places and like just climb and like also see those communities. But we wanted to like see what kind of the other like world was like, the other part of the world. So I don't know if that answered your question and if Charlotte has anything to add, but.
No, that was great.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Yeah, I'm just kind of curious what you guys thought about that. And then looked like Sarah said, building off what Sam asked, do you tend to look for areas that are on private land? Do you know who to talk to and there's less red tape involved? If dealing with government, you must have dealt with a wide variety of processes.
I guess the private land thing is not, it doesn't work the same everywhere in the world. So it's not obvious. So how we do it is, so far everywhere we've been to is first of all, contact the locals to get an idea of their need and also where there could be potential. And then if we find something that is in, then we go back to them and ask them if they know the rules there, and if they don't, then they go ask the communities or the city or whatnot. But we don't we don't choose on what kind of land it is. We just, I guess, wherever, we just find the cliff first and then see if that's possible.
Yeah, and I mean, with the, working with like the national park, the government, they're like, I think as long as we're within the guidelines that they present when, we first talk to them, they're happy. And it hasn't really been much more of a hassle like developing boulders in the Tetons than it has been in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, the boulders are in people's yard, and you knock on the door and they go, yeah, sure. Just like, don't, I don't know, just don't damage my property. And of course not, like, that's when you really got to brush your tick marks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good question for sure.
Yeah, that was a good question. Last question for me, unless anyone else has any that come up in the chat box. As soon as we can leave the country, where do you guys want to go? What's the first on the list as soon as we can leave?
Peru.
Yeah, I think Peru. Yeah, I think so. I think, I think Peru. I know Peru.
Yeah.
We'll go back. So, and if anyone has any like follow-up questions about the areas that we chatted about or whatnot, reach out to us from Instagram DM or whatever. I don't know. I'm not on TikTok, so you can't grab me on TikTok.
I don't know if you can message on TikTok.
I don't know. I don't know it, so I don't even know what it is. I just I don't know what you can do.
I don't think you need to know.
Okay.
We're good.
I'm
awesome, guys. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. And it was super informational. I learned a lot. You guys are great. Thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for
loved
organizing
it.
all this and keeping the Joe's Valley Fest alive virtually and in person. I know there's some in-person stuff going on today. So
So we have some
out a little
athlete
bit.
mix going out. Yeah, and we had a rodeo last night.
Cool.
Oh, nice.
Which was fun. Yeah. But yeah,
Cool.
awesome, guys.
All right. Well, you guys have fun. Stay
Thank
safe
you.
down there, and
Glad you
we'll see you
came.
around.
Yeah, we'll see ya.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.